Hello and happy Tuesday. Welcome to another episode of the Healing Home. I'm your host, Michelle, and today I am so excited and happy to be having my first, I guess, group chat, we could call it, but what I'm liking to call it is the Cannabis Roundtable. And I had the idea for this show back kind of in the infancy of this show itself. And because I know some really wonderful people that have so much knowledge to share about cannabis, its benefits, their experiences with it, their processes to get it to a state where it's consumable, I really wanted to bring them all together so we can chat about our experiences with this glorious plant, how it's helped us, and how we know that it can help other people too. So before we do that, I just want to remind everybody that I do have a Patreon page. So if you wanted to support me in a different way than purchasing products or what have you, go to patreon.com/thehealinghome. You can go there. There's a couple tiers you can select, and all the support is very, very, very much appreciated. So you can do that. You could sign up for my newsletter. I release it every full moon, so once a month. And with that newsletter comes out recipes and also the full moon offering that I have for the month. You can do that on my website, michelleshealinghome.com. And I also still have a couple bars of soap left for this month. I have shampoo and soap bars that I had for this month's offering, and I already sold out on shampoo. So if you were wanting to try that one, you're going to have to wait a little while. But I've got a couple of bars of soap left, my red clay and shea soap. So let me know if you guys are interested in any of that. But without further ado, please help me in welcoming our lovely guests this evening, Benjamin Balderson, Lee Thunderchicken, and James of Grounded Extracts. Let me make sure we're all unmuted here. Dude. All right. Howdy, fellas.
Hello.
How are we doing tonight?
Howdy.
Good. I need to make a soap and shampoo bar order for like a bunch of those. So
nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, they went really fast this month, and it's pretty cool. I'm really grateful for it. But yeah, once they come out, you got to snatch them up. But it's fun. I love soap. I love sharing it. It's really fun. So yeah.
Beautiful.
Well, the sun's finally out here in California also. We've had a horrible winter, and I couldn't be more excited about this. This is three of my favorite people in the world, and honestly, if I was going to choose this talk, I would have chosen the same panel. So amazing. And I've actually met all three of these people in person. I've got to go to James's house, and I got to go to an amazing event with Michelle, and Lee's actually been to my house. And so just this is just awesome.
Yeah, I'm honored to be having you guys. I mean, seriously, I think I reached out to James after him and I had our interview, and I was like, I have this idea for a cannabis episode. I think that we could all rally and whatever. So as I said in the beginning, it was like something I had thought of a while back, and it's so cool to see it coming to fruition. We're all in the same room, and that's really nice. So, for anyone who's not familiar with the people who are here, can you guys just go around, introduce yourselves? And while you introduce yourself, can you just talk about briefly when you first experienced or came across cannabis and realized that it was going to benefit you in some deep, profound way in your life? Let's start with Ben.
So for myself, the cannabis journey, and obviously when I was younger, I had my party years. And then I joined the Army when I was 17. So I didn't have anything to do with cannabis from 17 till my 27, I think. And when I was 27, I developed something called Wilson's disease, and it was just sitting latent in my genetics. It's not something you catch, and I don't process copper right, so I started having grand mal seizures, and the drugs that they initially gave me, which the first thing, a lot of people don't realize that clonazepam when everybody's taking it for so much fun, what it originally was designed for was seizure medication, and the high you get off of it's a secondary side effect. So that and Seroquel were the two things they gave me. So I gained 110 pounds or something like that. I turned into a zombie. I couldn't even bend over to tie my own shoes. It was absolutely horrifying. So I switched to trying cannabis and then further extracting my own medicine. And that's actually what really took me down the path of alchemy also. So I didn't just get this amazing medicine that now I'm back down to, my normal weight. Everybody's met me. I'm a very active guy. I'm not some slouch on a couch or something. I live off grid. For those that don't know me, I'm Benjamin Balderson. That was the part that I didn't remember to do there. I'm Benjamin Balderson. I'm the host of Odin's Alchemy. I've been a researcher for a number of years. I've been presenting. I just started my show about a year ago, so a lot of people know me just by name and don't really know Odin's Alchemy that much. So I'm more well known than my show is by far. But that's really what started me down the alchemy road also, was making my own cannabis medicine, which made it so I was able to function like a normal person again. And now through that, I have my own off-grid farm and I completely run, and I do a million different things. And it's because I'm not a damn zombie anymore. And it opened me up to so many new things. We've all listened to my alchemy talks and everything that it's based off of. It's I honestly owe cannabis in and of itself a huge debt of gratitude in so many ways. So I'll shut up.
Right on. No, that's beautiful. Lee, how about yourself?
Well, I've pretty much dedicated my life to this plant at this point. It kind of starts back, I guess you could say. I never smoked until I was 15, but I was incarcerated from 12 to 14 in juvenile boot camp. And when I got out, my grandma died, and they had me on all these medications, Wellbutrin, Depakote. I don't even remember anymore, but when I started smoking at 15, I just dropped all that crap and started to take back my mind. Just trying to figure out who I was. They had me doped up, I was a little hellion, so they doped me up real early. And when 15 came around, I just was on cannabis, but also broke my arm that year, and doctors put me on hydrocodone. And it was just me and my disabled grandfather, and that's pretty much how we paid the bills, was selling his extra pills. And I became hooked on them, and working working two jobs, and kind of needing the pills to keep up with the jobs. And then it's just like a revolving cycle, right? And then when my father died at 19, I've been on my own since. And I did some drugs for about 10 years to get over that, but always worked a job. I worked in many different fields of construction. Went to college at 24, graduated with honors in horticulture while on heroin, and still got it done. But by the time I was 27, I went back to collect the family home because my aunt had died, and that was a whole other nightmare. But lost it to the banks. A squatter attacked me. I ended up going to jail for a few months. Lost everything and started over again. So I came back up to Michigan to just try this again. It just felt like the life path. And, after living in the woods for 8 months and getting off all the drugs, that's what I did. And 5 years into new life.
That's
how
beautiful.
It's changed my life. So eventually, getting off the opiates and cannabis, that's what I do now. I've kind of made it my life's mission to help others coming off of pharmaceuticals or who need a good night's rest. It makes amazing skin creams. So that's what I've just dedicated my life to. And now I'm learning to expand into other herbs and mushrooms. And, that's what's brought me down the path of the alchemist as well. It's just a fascination with this plant. I've been growing for 10 years and working the lab for 2. So learning as I go. Learn something new all the time.
Yeah, that's awesome. And that's the way to do it. We have to just continuously keep going and keep learning. And if you stop doing those two things, then all sorts of weird things pop up, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Wow, that's awesome. And I think James maybe stepped away for a second. But most people know I'm Michelle. I'm the host of the show. But like my introduction with cannabis was from a young age as well. I mean, I kind of started smoking around 13 years old, was introduced to it then, and realized that it brought me so much relief from anxiety and particularly social anxiety. So it made me like loosen up a lot. And as I just grew up older, I just always gravitated towards it, was always something I was very interested in. And I then, as I, started my herbalist path, I always had cannabis just at the forefront. Like, wow, this was like my introduction to herbalism before I even knew what herbalism was, right? And I was like kind of just exploring this world from a young age, but not knowing it until looking back in hindsight. And now seeing all the benefits that comes from using it topically and taking it internally and meeting people like you guys, and then moving on to growing it myself and learning those processes. It's been not only healing, but it's just been fabulous every single step of the way. And the amount of revelations I've had, being able to dive into deep spaces, darker spaces that I may have not been able to as easily. Cannabis has been there for me in that respect, for sure. And James, I want to hear your story too and your intro as well.
Hello. Great. I love all you guys, and I love everything you guys say. I'm James from Grounded Extracts. You can find me on YouTube, Grounded Extracts. We do a show called The Vulgate, and I talk about this type of stuff and all sorts of types of stuff going on in my life. And groundedextracts.com is another place you can find me. Cannabis for me was one of those things. I was raised with the idea that it was bad. And that's it. I wasn't told anything else. I wasn't told that, I was told that dirty people use it. They hold up a joint and a needle. And bad people do these things, right? But I never, it's crazy. I never even thought about this until I got much older. But I was never told why people do these things, just that they're bad, right? And so, I had really, so I was ardently against it. I was raised to be like that. And I was like, if I came into this world, why do I, without it, why do I need it? And then you learn about, cannabinoid, your endocannabinoid system and all that. And, breastfeeding, provides those endocannabinoids until your body starts making it themselves. And then when you get like around 12, 13, different for everyone, but you start losing that endocannabinoid, and you need to replenish it, with other things. And it used to be food back in the day, but they've destroyed most of that crop from the entire, from all the farmland. So we're not getting it in any way, shape, or form. So I think a lot of us gravitate towards the thing that used to be in our food, all the different cannabinoids. So I had a severe stomach problem. And when I mean stomach problem, I mean, I wasn't like throwing up or like shit my pants. My stomach would tighten up into like a rock, and I couldn't stand up straight. And this was going on for years in my early teen years, age 11 to when I started smoking, around Lee's age, like 15. And I'd been to all these doctors, give me all different types of medication, same story, pharmaceuticals. And, it didn't do anything to me at that point. I didn't think it was doing anything to me. And it just got worse and worse. And I couldn't stand up straight. I was like hunched over every single day. And anything stressful that happened would kick that into gear. And so it was just like a nightmare situation. And, my friends have been smoking weed for a few years. They're like, dude, just try it. It's going to help your stomach. And at the end I was like, fuck it, let's do it. My mom left, my dad was on Viking, and I was like, all right, let's give something a chance, And so I was just like a depressed teenager like everyone else. And then I was like, oh, I learned why people do it. It changes the way you think. I didn't even know why people did it that whole time. And And then, you know, from then on, you get caught with it, you know, when you're a teenager, like most of us. And then we get put on probation for like 3 years because you smoked a joint. And now you're getting drug tested every week at first and then once a month. So what do? Your brother comes along and says, hey, take this pill. That'll be out of your system in 2 days. Okay. So you go that direction because the medicine, the herbalism is being shelved. You're being told that's bad for you, but you can take these prescribed like poison drugs. You know, so okay, so I get in the pharmaceutical route and then I get, you know, go down the opiate route, exactly what Lee was talking about. And then you end up on Suboxone, methadone, and those things, at least for me, made my body extremely acidic. So I was smoking at least like 5 grams of weed a day, and I had to, or I was just like dripping, like all my pores were like clogged, like just mucus. If you know about Dr. Sabi, the acidic state is what creates that mucus that you can't breathe at night while you're sleeping. It was so bad. And now I look back, and I was smoking so much cannabis because I was trying to balance out the acidity with the alkaline that is cannabis. So all these things proved to me over and over what we're dealing with and what type of things we're trying to combat. And yeah, so I just started doing that. And then like Lee said, I and Balderson said, like, starting to do it yourself, you know, like. And so I first started making simple extracts. And, you know, I was doing it like at first I was doing it like in a frying pan, and I was angling it sideways so all the liquid would go down into the corner, and just like got to hold it for like an hour. So yeah, dude. And then, you know, straining it with baby t-shirts and like just all sorts of shit, man. But, you know, you figure it out. And it was so good. So while I was on Suboxone, I could have choked on like acidity. It was so bad. So I'm so grateful for cannabis for getting me through those things, not to cannabis, but for cannabis. I'm grateful to the dude that put that in the ground, man. I think it's cool. I think it's really cool.
Nice. I love that. This is great. These are great stories. I thank you guys for sharing. It's awesome because this is all these stories here are very common. You hear a lot of this, like people were on really hard drugs, they were on pharmaceuticals, then they found cannabis, then they started getting better, then their lives improved, then they started learning more, then they started opening up, then they started doing shadow work, then they started doing all these things. And to think that this plant has gone through so many different levels of prohibition blows my mind. And that's one of the things that is so fascinating about it, because anyone who's done research into cannabis and the history of it can see that it was, you know, first looked at and it was seen as a beneficial plant. There's many uses for it, and then the FDA comes along and schedules it and puts it in, you know, schedules a class 1 drug, so it's untouchable.
What's amazing is this reached beyond the FDA, because this is the vast majority of countries on the planet, including, like, everybody's always thinking Jamaica is like all weed and everything. Like when you listen to like Sean Paul's lyrics and stuff, he's talking about freeing Jamaica from the prohibition. Like, it's across the world this took over. It's mind-blowing.
Yep. It is. And then it comes back and it goes in waves. And now we're at the state we're at now. We're almost every single state in the United States. It's almost legal everywhere. You know, it's still federally illegal. But, you know, it's like, it's funny to see the pendulum swing. And this happens with so many things in the world, but just noticing it with cannabis, I'm kind of seeing this sort of like now with mushrooms coming through, and mushrooms are now the new thing that are being legalized, at least here in Portland, Oregon. It's like legal. They've decriminalized all drugs, I'm pretty sure. And so I'm seeing the same thing is going to maybe kind of come in with mushrooms. So what do you guys think about this, the cycles of prohibition that you've noticed throughout time? And I guess I'd just like to hear your opinions on that, and what it makes you think about and what it makes you feel when you hear that, when we talk about this kind of stuff.
Well, definitely cannabis was an introduction to the conspiracy world for me, because when I you know, of course, growing up, and they tell you, oh, drugs are bad, okay? And then when you get to doing it and you're like, well, this isn't so bad. I bet they lied about a bunch of other stuff. They do all the other drugs. No, they was right about those though. That's just one example right there. But like the global conspiracy of it is, you're right. Like hemp has got outlawed worldwide. So way back then too. So like if they can shut down the world for a bad cold. Look how long ago they outlawed a plant that was a staple on every farm in the world, just about. The endocannabinoids that regulate livestock crops, how it replenishes soil, building, textiles, the list goes on and on. So the fact that, the DuPont families that wanted to promote their nylon during the World War prior to it, but then like when World War II broke out, it was growing hemp again for rope, and then, it's bad again after the war. And just the hypocrisy was so blatant to me, even as a teenager. It got me questioning things. So that's
I always go back to like MK Ultra victims and all that, like depending on how far down the rabbit hole you want to go into that world. But they all say the same thing about cannabis, that they were allowed to use cocaine, heroin, things like that. But cannabis was in certain psychedelics they were not allowed to touch. That's a red flag in the world, right? Is this realm in this era in a benevolent state? Does Disney like produce certain things or whatever, like because they genuinely want to help you grow spiritually and learn about the realm? No. So I look at it like this is all recent in the past 100 years, right? Like you could go to jail for life in 1931. And then if you look up, from the 1800s to the 1900s, it was in every pharmacy and in just everywhere, cannabis lozenges and all types of remedies using cannabis in all different ways, almost, if not more so, diverse than it is nowadays in stores. So for me, my opinion, it's like they don't want people, the common people, the vulgate, to know about something that can give you a different perspective on something, that won't kill you, and it's all these things. I think it's like that, and the reason why they're legalizing it and all that, just because if someone's gonna make money off of it, we're gonna make money off of it. Like so many people start smoking, it's just like they're gonna get in on the market. And now you look at all this, like Balderson was talking about the other day, this fluffed up weed that looks good, hard as a rock, 80,000% THC content, but it's like, these things aren't necessarily, they're sales techniques at the end of the day, and they're like shit cannabis. That's the other thing too. It's not just about smoking weed. For me, it's not just about weed. It's like just respecting the herb for what it is and the abilities it has. I'm not like, I also don't want like everyone. Sometimes when we talk about cannabis, there people like to speak up and be like, yeah, well, I was using it in an addictive way. So, once everyone wakes up and realizes their addiction, they'll move past it and grow up. And, I just think that's a fucking retard. It's just like, speak for yourself. And now I'm just going off on a rant. But that's, the 30s. Look into the 30s with cannabis. Some crazy shit.
That's not really a rant. It really is a thing, because people project, and because these people have a dependency issue, because most of them, especially if they're ranting about cannabis being the thing that they had a dependency issue with, then chances are they went to like super church dependency or activism or something else that they just throw their life into, and they just don't understand. It's just this addictive personality is all it is. And you're not really fixing that. You're just swapping addictions, and your new addiction is more socially acceptable. So you look down on people with your old addiction.
Especially if they don't even have the addiction aspect of it, but they're partaking in it. It's even, it's more frustrating. Like, yeah.
So on the control issue, the cannabis is super interesting, because that one was worldwide. But when we look at other things that they've put under their prohibition, like cannabis is listed, they didn't just take it away. They listed it as worse than cocaine, as worse than heroin. They said this has no medical value in any way, shape, or form. This is just poison to the human. Like, you might as well be going out and eating just piles of rat poison or something as compared to taking this cannabis, is what they portray. So that just on the face of it, you know something's going on. When they've made that worse than hard drugs, that's absolutely insane. And even on hard drugs for myself, when you look at it, any story from the 1800s included laudanum, included opium. These kind of things were typically used for pain. And if they were not such a hardcore criminalized thing, you can bet your ass I would have the finest opium sitting in my medicine cabinet. I would have the finest cocaine sitting in my medicine cabinet, because these things have true medicinal uses, which is why the government didn't schedule them as no medicinal use. So now we have to really start looking at society and what a devolved society they've created, that even if we do legalize these things, and you're seeing that in Portland, which I'm fully believe that these things should be legal, but there's going to be a super painful period in between, because these people have no self fucking control, and they blame it on whatever they can, and they're going to take and delve into that. But even with cannabis, the guy that sits and loafs on the couch that's smoking pot all day and is what was portrayed as the typical stoner, that guy was like that in the first place. He was kind of a lump and useless anyways. And that just brought out more. It just exemplified it, because I don't take medicine, and I take super strong medicine and sit down. Usually I go out and run around the farm. So all these things, you start understanding it was all just control mechanisms, like the prohibition of alcohol. They prohibited it even though all the lawmakers were still drinking it. And then during that transition period, engines went from being able to run solely off of ethanol, which most of your farm asses were doing, because every one of us got a freaking still up in the corner right there, and you can just produce your own vegetable gasoline, get some damn ethyl alcohol, real simple. And before Prohibition ended, Ford was not allowed to make that engine. In fact, Ford had even made a hemp car where the material on the outside was even hemp. It ran off of hemp oil. Rudolph Diesel said, my diesel will run off of anything, any oil. He got thrown in the damn ocean, found floating. Like, you start finding out none of these things have to do with actually benefiting our society. Even when heroin was legal, there wasn't an epidemic of heroin users like there is now, where you have people out on the street. I live in freaking Humboldt, California. I promise, I go into town, there's as many zombies as there is anything else. When it was legal and it was accessible, there wasn't that kind of a problem. Why? Because people had self-control. They gave that up when they gave up their own control to the law system, which isn't there for your good at all. So it's all fucked. That's where I stand.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And I think too, to go off the tip of just people not having self-control, what have you, it's just, I think that there's such a lack of personal responsibility and like emotional intelligence, emotional health, that's going on further than mental health. Like a lot of times you hear, oh, we need to help the homeless people because they're mentally ill. It's like, well, yes, there's probably some of that, but there is like huge emotional detriments and stunted people out there that will turn to these substances because they don't know what else to do. They've never been shown how you can actually start to open yourself up. They've never been shown the benefits of something even like cannabis, because everything to them is just a drug. It's just a way to escape. And I think that that's like the line that has to be kind of like drawn, or like explained to people who might project onto someone, oh, you're just a stoner, that's the only reason why you like cannabis, or it's rotting your brain, you can't remember anything or whatever. I think that it's like there's a deeper root of emotional intelligence and personal responsibility that has to be addressed before anything else happens, in order to just like start bringing in better change or more change, and then realizing that everyone's on their own journey, and that you can only do the things that you can do to help yourself and then help the people around you, kind of like what we're all trying to do, what you guys are all trying to do with creating your own extracts, right? You guys have taught yourselves these methods, and as you said, it opened up the world of alchemy to you guys. And so when you started learning how to create your own extracts, like what were some of the first steps you took to start learning these processes to create really clean, really healthy extracts that you could use for yourself, to benefit what you guys were needing? Like what was like some of the first steps that you guys took to do that?
Cleaning my pipe as a teenager. The resin.
Nice.
I guess you could trace it back that far. I didn't really get into extractions until my mid-20s and stuff, and just basically started with the old Odin blasting in a glass tube, and I never liked it. The taste was terrible because you couldn't get the butane out. Everybody was still figuring out the extractions of cannabis back then. 12 years ago, it was still a new thing, developing science. So I guess it started there with the cannabis, but I don't want to get into all the different concentrating of pharmaceutical pills that I used to do, with cooking things down in spoons and all these other things.
Yeah.
Darker sides to good knowledge, right? Like you said, everything's a tool. If you break your leg, you damn sure are going to want some morphine. If I got to pull your tooth out, cocaine's great for that. These things have a place, they have a purpose, but in the wrong hands, they're terribly misused, right? Can make this comparison to many things. And perhaps so much of the addiction and mental illness going on in this world is a subconscious reaction to how unhealthy our society is. The GMO foods, the high fructose everything, fluoride in the water, whatever the hell they're actually spraying in the sky. And we just live in a very dark society with pretty lights. It's like a head in the sand kind of outlook on reality that most people have. And sometimes when reality crashes down onto people, some people sink, some people swim. I don't know it's a hard world. You just gotta, that's the path of the healer, is like first heal themselves to be able to show others a better way. I'm not without my mentors and teachers. So it's all a learning experience as we go. I think I kind of went off topic there.
That was great.
Yeah, you're good. No, you're totally right. It's totally a learning experience, like through and through. So, and as we said kind of in the beginning, if you stop learning, it's like, problems will come. If you feel as though you've learned everything you need to know, or that's why I think there's such a folly in the whole like achieve enlightenment. You've now achieved enlightenment. It's like bullshit. I don't even think that is part of why we're here. I think that I don't know exactly what happens when we die, but I think that there is a cycle of just like you're constantly learning, constantly growing, and should never think that it's time to stop doing those things. And so with that, when it comes to the extraction process, I know that you guys are all, so like when you're making, what the extractions you guys are making, which is basically for people who are listening, dabs, correct? Now, correct me if I'm wrong. That's like how you guys are consuming it, right?
That's painting with a broad brush. You could just call it concentrated cannabis oils, and that comes in many forms. The smokable is called dabs, but dabs in itself, comes in crumble, shatter, batter, sauce, diamonds. It has many different consistencies. But as a general overall guideline, when you're someone saying dabs, it is usually smokable.
Okay.
Yeah, smokable BHO, butane hash oil, extracted concentrate of cannabis. It's about as technical as I can make it.
I'm gonna let James go with his answer on all that because this is just too many things. I'm gonna end up ranting again, and it's James's turn, not mine.
Coconut oil extracts. I started out with like vegetable oil, and then I went to like this rosemary extract that I had. Horrible idea. And I started learning about what vegetable oil and canola oil and how bad that shit is for you. And so, and then I started making coconut oil ones, and then my friend is like, nah, no one wants that. They want propylene glycol and these other things and vegetable glycerin. So I tried a bunch of different ones, and I actually really enjoy the vegetable glycerin taste of a cannabis extract. It's pulling out very different things. It's very sweet, but it's got a very unique nostalgic cannabis aroma too. But so I explained the coconut oil extract method last time we talked, and I that's still one of my favorites. And you can refine it and get better at it, and extract the liquid and do another round. You can learn how to make things potent. But in terms of like dabs and things like that, the rosin press I really like. I have one of those, and just squeezing the oil right out of it. It's very time consuming to make extracts. So and I don't usually like heat, but I like pressure. But if you're gonna do dabs and stuff, that's the route I would use, would be the rosin press. But in terms of that level conversation, Balderson and Thunderchicken have the next rungs if you want to talk about extraction and their processes and stuff. So I learned from these guys. Like you said, you never stop learning. And like when I met Lee, man, he just certain things he told me and about growing, and same with Ben. He came over and gave me some tips about growing. And yeah, man, just just really simple things, just like nitrogen content. Like Ben telling me the nitrogen's low, fixing that and watching the results, man. So still learning.
Yeah, definitely. I love that because I'm in your same boat. I've stuck to very simple, like folk traditional ways to extract cannabis, and in coconut oils and olive oil, some of these
Alcohol,
more
yeah.
Alcohol, making tinctures. And I love that because I love making salves, and I know you can also use some of these more sophisticated extractions to do the same thing. But yeah, for me, I'm very excited to have you guys because I do want to learn more about this stuff. And one of the reasons Lee is here too is because we're friends on Facebook, and I was seeing you post all these beautiful extractions that you make. You make these infused sugars and all this stuff that people don't know are actually doable, usable, that they can be dosable on a low dose so you can have it throughout your day. These are the things that I want to start. Like, people who don't know about this stuff, they need to know and understand a little bit more, so it's not as demonized and it's not looked down upon that you're just like this druggie that just walks through your day all stoned and stuff like that. So if you guys want to just expand a little bit more about these more sophisticated extraction methods and how you guys have come to find it, and Lee's also provided us with a couple videos too, so that he can walk us through that so people can actually get more of a visual of what this stuff looks like as well.
Well, so I believe I'm the oldest one, and there wasn't really so many fancy toys when I started. So where I started at with things, the best way I found was very similar to what James was just describing, with rather than just taking and smashing the nug smasher style, which does work without a doubt, as James said. We would take and make bubble hash, and then take the bubble hash and we'd put it inside of a nipple that you could get down at the hardware store, and you just screw a cap on one side and drill a little hole in it, and then put a C-clamp over it, and the other side's open, so you'd put, usually get about the size of nickels, and you'd stuff the dang bubble hash in the tube there, and then put the nickels behind it and put that C-clamp down squeezed onto it and set that in a little Pyrex dish with a little bit of heat. And you crank down on that every few minutes, you know, and it just come kind of rolling out that little hole you drilled. It was janky as hell. I've been through just about every extraction technique you can imagine. I'm pretty upgraded these days. Butane hash oil really took a heavy hit in its name. And then also because the butane hash oil, the cleanliness of its vaporization is what makes it taste so good and clean if you do it right. I mean, if it's done right, you can't beat butane hash oil for pulling out just the oil or just the part that you want to get high with. So it doesn't have the medicinal value that the old school way, where it was way dirtier. You know, you had all kinds of plant material in there and salt. So this is very similar to the way that Simpson Oil, which is a horrible fucking extraction method, just gross. Yeah, you know, his naphtha, you know, like, oh my God, really? What? You know, yeah, worst solvent ever. You know, but the thing is, because it's such a poor extraction, but it's still a concentration and it still has all the components, you are getting more medicinal value than you are getting out of BHO, which is more pulling out just the high end of the oil. Now, because of where I stand now, I don't personally smash anymore because it breaks down. I've put a lot of work into it. I've done so damn much extraction, and now that I've been able to do live extraction, you can see the difference between just a nice, fresh, cured plant material that you extract out. Is that my fucking computer's ringing?
Uh-oh.
Damn it, Josh.
It's very pleasant, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Nice melody.
Tell the dumb fucker I'm on a show. Which I told him that beforehand. That's why I said that like that. I was like, I'm getting ready to get on a show. Like, don't call me, dickhead. Anyways, so when you extract, when you're able to do like a cryo freeze, which is what I do now, where you're literally freezing at negative 150 the plant material, and then you're running a frozen solvent through it, then the life that was in that material, when you see the extraction, it has this like neon quality to it. I mean, it screams with life. And when you take that particular material, it has so much more efficacy. So you start understanding that the sulfur is that yellow part that's inside there, and that brightness is when it's the most alive. And so I do my best to make sure I'm not degrading that portion of things. Now, the thing that people are leaving out, and this is even indicative in the essential oil market where they're getting really clean extracts, but they're doing it usually more with the steam distillation or something like that as a solvent, is it completely bypasses the salts. And so you've taken out the entire other half of the system. And now it's missing half of the piece that it needs to actually work, which is why the Simpson oil works better than dabs. So what you need to do is then calcinate down the plant material after you've got this super clean extraction, put the salt back into it, and marry them. And now that they're married, you have some interesting characteristics, because you can actually still dab Philosopher's Stone, because now the masculine side will take on the feminine characteristics. The perfect stone, it vaporizes when you heat it, and it turns into a little rock, a little hard thing when it's cool. So it has both sides. You can eat it or you can vaporize it, and you're still getting the salt component in it. Now, with cannabis, the thing you don't get is near as high because it's taken that out. That highness is kind of an opening of pathways, and that salt will fill the path. So people don't really like that if they're just trying to get high either, and they're not using it medicinally.
I guess it's the temperature range that makes it activated. See, when you're doing a cryo extraction, like Ben was saying, the fresh frozen, that's the best way to go. Like when I do mine in the field, like I'll trim most of the fan leaves down to the sugar leaves the night before, and I'll harvest that thing before sunlight hits it, and so you're retaining the highest level of the oils that you can, and get the buds off the stems as quick as you can and into the freezer, and get it frozen. And I freeze down to negative 35. And then once you're down that small, you can just kind of put a little pressure on it, and it will crush up and make it smaller. The more you crush it up, the more you increase the surface area, the higher your yields are going to be because the solvents can get to the goodness, right? And like Ben was saying, the original Rick Simpson way is kind of I wouldn't do it anymore. But most of the Rick Simpson oil that you're getting nowadays in dispos is made from isopropyl alcohol. It's a whole plant. They use the lower qualities of the plant. They don't use the flowers most of the time. But even you can add the flowers in, but it's usually like whole plant. I'm not sure about root, but they're using like isopropyl alcohol, and then it's cooked off rice cooker or something like that's usually the method. And this is a good medicine. It's a most easy, simple way to make something. But when you're taking just the flowers, which have the highest concentrations of the trichomes, which is where all the psychoactive or just all the chemical components are held from the plant. See, everybody's heard of THC and CBD, but there's over 113 identified cannabinoids, and that's just the only two that everybody's heard of. The different solvents you use will grab different parts of the plant. Like steam distillation is great for grabbing the higher level oils, essential oil, the terpene levels and stuff. Ethanol grabs a wider variety of the plant. Butane grabs more specifically the oil of the plant. And like the temperatures that you're doing these extraction runs at are very important as well. A warmer room temperature, you're grabbing more chlorophyll, more carbon, more plant wax. You're also grabbing the oil, but it'll come out darker. It won't taste the same. Still good medicine, but that's the eyes of the cannabis market now are on how golden, pretty, high THC contents. And this is just out of balance to me. And I mean, it has its place, but as far as like the true ethical medicine of it, it needs to be a balanced spectrum, the whole plant spectrum, proper temperatures of activation. Like when if you research how to decarboxylize your cannabis, and what you're doing in a decarboxylation process is you're converting the natural THCA that it is in its raw form. And by putting heat to it, you convert it to the delta-9 that is the psychoactive component. So when you're leaving it, when they'll recommend that you're putting it in the oven of 200, 250. Like I like to activate my oil at 180. I have a magnetic heating stir plate. I love this little thing. It's got a little stir bar. So I'm spinning it at 360 RPM or 720. Controlled temperature of 180, and you just let that go for 30 minutes, and you've retained a lot more of the essential oil level in the oil without cooking it off, without fouling the colors, and without ruining the flavor. And I've found that it's brought much more benefit with these low heat activations. And, I'm still learning all the time with it. I'll take raw THCA, and I take that sometimes in the morning or something, and I'll take the activated in the evenings, and that's my secret weapon to 8 hours of sleep every night. And that's just where most basic ways I've learned to make the things. The different temperatures, like I said, that's the industry standard is like negative 40. When actually negative 40 is equal in Fahrenheit and Celsius. They meet back up there, for those who didn't know. And that's the standard where you're not grabbing the wax component of the cannabis plant. Like I'm intentionally extracting at like 0 degrees or maybe negative 10, somewhere in that range, to grab some of the plant waxes. And sometimes I'm extracting at 20 degrees. And When I'm making topicals, I'll extract at 20 degrees to pull more plant wax that I could then put through a winterization process, where you're diluting it like 10-to-1 in ethyl alcohol and putting it in a deep freezer for a couple of days, and the different waxes and the fats and the lipids will coagulate. And you can run it through a vacuum funnel and capture those plant waxes, and just diluting that with the coconut and shea butter, it makes a very effective topical. And the different genetics matter too. All those goofy names that the cannabis world has, they'll come back with different chemotypes, like the different ratios of the cannabinoids in the plant. And that's what I think a lot of the industry is pushing, these high THCs, and it makes people zombies. That's not something that people need to be consuming all the time. It's like a treat, a nighttime nightcap or something.
Yeah, it's part of it.
Yeah, but as far as like working through the day, no, I wouldn't be smoking that kind of stuff. But some people, like for a seizure case or something, absolutely. And everybody's different. Once people get past like 2 weeks of consuming cannabis, it takes on a different kind of effect for them. You don't get that real heavy teenager stoned. But like, there's always that first joint of the day is the strongest joint of the day. So a bunch of ramblings there, but I think
that was
some basis.
That was great. So like what I used to do, I used to I would do 2 coconut oil extracts. I would do one around like 240. Now I do 250 for most of the CBDs I work with. But then I would do another one at 200, and this is because I was getting so much mixed information. And this is years ago. Like you said, we're still learning about these things. But like, it was always about making sure it was high enough to unlock the CBD. We didn't know about the CBN and CB1 and all that, but it was, getting the temperature high enough to release that, release the carbon, right? But you are, like you said, you're losing cannabinoids. You're burning off other cannabinoids that can't handle those high temperatures, and they're already activated at, like you said, 180 or 200. So I would make I used to make 2 batches. Now I do things a little differently, but 2 batches, and then I would just put them together. Or like you said, use one for one thing and one for the other. That's why I like combining them, though. That way you can make sure you grab everything. I was always worried about not unlocking that shit. Like I always found better results with higher temperatures, but like you said, my goal was up here and not, holistically.
Mm-hmm. Higher temperatures will grab more of it.
100% they do. Especially like Lee said, the fats and lipids. The other issue I end up having with a higher temperature is I find that it gets a lot more efficacy if you're able to crystallize it. And the heat, when it starts converting it and dropping out those carbon molecules, it's no longer able to take on that really super pristine shape. It'll turn more into your goo. And you see that, which is fine when you're like just going to distill. But even at that, in my opinion, if it was able to crystallize ahead of time, there's just something about it when it's able to do that as compared to not. It just becomes so much stronger, and you're able to do those separations at low temperature because of the crystallizations and whatnot. That you would have needed higher temperature a lot of times, because most people, when they're doing their separations, they're doing it through temperature vaporization, because all these different components vaporize at different temperatures. If I do it the other way and I do it under cold, it doesn't turn. And the oil, once you've overheated oil, it never comes back. It just doesn't work the same. We all know this, like cooking. Butter. The butter's a real simple one. You go and scorch that butter, that's toast. It's not usable anymore. As compared to trying to just get the fats out of it, where you're slow cooking the fats out of it till it gets its clarity. That's just a very simple process compared to what we're doing on this level. And So like I said, I've just found it since I started working in the negative temperatures all the time. It's vastly easier, and I just find that everything's just got so much more efficacy. That heat, which at the end moment, when you vaporize or when you mix it into your food, there is going to be heat, but that's right then. That's why when you smoke it, it's you don't need to do that pre-decarbonization like they're talking about, where you heat it to get that carbon molecule to drop out. It's already going to drop out when you smoke it. Automatically.
It's the quickest decarbing ever. Smoke it. Put a fucking flamethrower.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Totally.
Oh, and I wanted to clarify, like, in case I do the extremely cold temperature extracts, but like I said, I'm doing a low heat for the activation process, and I'm not dabbing that. I'm eating that. That's my edible oil. Yeah.
Yeah, the rosin press too would be.
No,
Yeah, absolutely. I got a small rosin press. I use that too.
Yeah, and you do the cold temperatures. Mine only gets to like I think 18 or 19 degrees, negative 19 or whatever. So and totally, I noticed the difference. Totally, but you're saying you're freezing the fresh right away. You're just going right. Yeah. See, and I'm using. Well, I guess it would be both, but I'm more familiar with the not fresh, just dried, or but even in the freezer.
Oh, bro, you can't even compare when you try fresh, bro. Go to the store, get yourself some dry ice, take whatever plant, and as Lee said, get it before the sun comes up, preferably on a full moon when that thing's just seeping with oil. You throw that on some dry ice and try your extraction, you will shit yourself. It's worlds of difference.
Yeah, with the rosin press, the way to do that, like you're fresh freezing your material, and then take it from fresh freezing, and you're doing a water extraction, ice water. You put it in the bubble hash, and then you take that bubble hash and you press it at your low temperature heat press, and that's how you're getting. That's the top grade rosin, the live rosin they call it, because you're getting all those fresh terpenes that you lose in the drying process.
Yeah. Yes. That is. Yeah. That's one thing. Yeah, that's a massive thing. Yeah.
Yeah, interesting. I'm just thinking about the like the smells and the flavor difference between when it's dried and fresh. And for me, it's like anytime I'm trimming cannabis, I'm like, dude, I want to smell like this all the time.
Yeah. And
like go ahead.
All these different stages of smell. Sorry, I totally know what you're talking about. And all these different stages while it's drying is mind blowing. And it doesn't, a lot of the time when it's done curing, it doesn't smell anything, like not even relatable to the original fresh smell. It's a completely different world of alchemical transformation that you're able to witness in that way.
Oh, that's just the drying, and then after 4 weeks of the curing, it takes on a little bit different.
Totally that's different. What I meant. At the end of the cure, throughout the drying, that's all different. But then the cure, from start to finish, they're completely opposite ends of the spectrum, in my opinion.
You get all that nitrogen and planty smell out of it after it's been dried. During the cure phase, where all that planty and haze smell gets out of there, and then you smell the oils again, similar to like you did when the plant was fresh, but still extreme degraded because all them volatile terpenes gone.
Yeah.
But you get that fruitiness back, the smell that that if that comes back in, I always saw that as a good sign of like curing.
I also do steam distillation, like you're just boiling steam through it and recondensing the steam. I've done this with fresh cannabis and with dry cannabis, but like with the fresh, it's not as good. With the fresh frozen, it's great for going into bubble hash wash or with a butane extraction. But I've tried steam distillation extraction on fresh material, and it's not what it smells. It's not like it's not what it smells like on the bud. But when I'm pulling a BHO
that's got to be because there's still water in the live fresh, and you're basically activating that water, and the two are mixing together. Where when you fresh frozen and you use butane, now the water stays frozen and locked.
It's frozen
because the butane's still soluble at that negative temperature and the water's not. So that does
bypasses the
extract the
water.
oil, and it smells just like it did when the plant was fresh.
Yep.
Wow. I
Very
love
cool.
this.
Yeah, this is good.
We have a buddy that had a hydraulic press, I remember, and he was doing the fresh methods where he was just doing a hydraulic press with it, and he was creating, I can't remember what he called it. It was almost like, it was kind of powdery almost like, and he was using like a dab pen to do it with, to smoke it with it. But anyway, that again, I am not well versed in all of the things that you guys are talking about, but it's making me want to become more well versed. And I'm imagining what these extracts taste like when you're using the fresh plant versus the dried plant. And it excites me so much because I can just imagine the difference. And so I'm very curious because it makes me think of something like St. John's wort, which when you're working with a herb like St. John's wort, you want to use that fresh, because if you don't use it fresh, same thing, the volatile oils in that plant diminish so much once it's dry, that if you are to make like an oil infusion or something with dried St. John's wort, yeah, you might get some benefits, but you're not going to get that like ruby red, scarlet red medicine that comes from the hypericin when it's fresh. And so it's just really interesting to see how different plants want to be worked with in different ways. And when you tune into that and when you listen to them, it's just like opens up this whole new world of exploration that you can find and like be able to compare these different preparations. And it's really cool. And so speaking of preparation, Lee, can we show one of your videos to kind of like maybe give a visual to some people that aren't very familiar? So would you like me to show, which one do you think? Maybe.
Well, that first one is the slurry. This one here is you can mute that.
Boiling point.
Hold on, let's pause
really
it.
So I'm doing that.
Do you want this one first? This one first or the other one?
This is an example of vacuum distillation.
Okay.
Like you can see the color of the oil because this has already exceeded 133 Celsius, and it's in negative 30 degrees Mercury vacuum. And,
all right. Hopefully this plays.
I see it a little choppy.
Yeah, my internet is so slow. I'm sorry, guys.
Well, this is a vacuum distillation setup here. This one I'm sending here is the BHO. We haven't even got to talk. Well, that's my magnetic heating stirrer. That's an interesting thing about the water vortex in a conical shape is I always get touched down on the vortex around 1080 on that thing. That's a side note. Here I was infusing avocado oil with the dabs.
Nice.
And I put it in all my cooking oils now. But I've done many times coconut oil, olive oil, all the oils, all the butters in crock pots.
I like avocado oil, so it takes you can heat it higher and it doesn't damage it as quick. Avocado's nice.
Yeah, it makes a very effective cooking oil.
All right, let's take a look at this one then.
Yeah, it's more appropriate. That's the slurry. Like that's after most of the butane has been evaporated, and
Come
it's
on
still.
Oh man, we lost it. Come on.
Yeah, 4 people trying to share a video. Definitely.
I know. And our internet is like a snail's pace. So let's try one more time and see if it loads. But if it doesn't, maybe somehow I really wanted people to see this because it is beautiful, but I don't think it's going to come up. That's a bummer.
And I've tried Lee's and Ben's homemade creations, and they are top notch. You want to talk about taste, effect? Both of these dudes, both of those dudes are like top shelf cannabis extractors. You know, so if y'all want to learn the high level stuff, like I go to them. When I talk to these dudes, like at Flattoberfest, I'm like, God damn, I feel like they're they're very far ahead in the race. And like Michelle said, I truly enjoy the traditional methods, and my business, we're so busy in what we do, that's worked great for us. But I'm just glad I know you guys because I always want to learn more. And whenever I talk to either of you guys about this stuff, y'all just blow my mind like every time. So I
Yeah.
appreciate it.
I second that.
Doing it the classic ways, man. You'll never replace the classic ways. With all the forefront of the cannabis industry that's brought these, it's getting very affordable, bro. You too can own closed loop butane extraction systems now. They're pretty cheap.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Oh, dude, my very first little 2-pound one, that thing was like $7,000. Like you can get 48 inch 6-inch by 48 tubes for like $700 now. Like, and the little crappy pump that it came with, I can get down at Granger for like $500, and it is horrifying. It was horrifying.
When I find something that works, I perfect the method that I have to the umpteenth, and it's like I'm very pleased with what I know and what we do. So man, but the entire thing is
James's medicine. I just got to interrupt. James's medicine is absolutely amazing.
Oh, it's next level. Next level.
It is phenomenal.
I want some Best Earth right now.
Oh man, I gotta send y'all some herbal super chats soon. I appreciate you guys. Yeah, and it's just
you're a wealth of knowledge in all the other herbs. I've been just specializing in cannabis for 10 years.
Well, this is it.
I'm still very interested in what you and Michelle are doing because I'm trying to learn all that stuff too.
Well, and we're all trying to do a similar thing too, is that through our learning of these physical things, we're learning all the metaphysical truth that is reflected in it, right? And we all have different areas of expertise we're supposed to be in. And yeah, man, I love that I can send people y'all's way. You know, like it'd be overwhelming to start thinking about if I wanted to start doing, butane hash oil and all that. So it's just cool. Like people have asked me for certain things. And I'm like, well, grounded extracts, we're public market, we're in this state, we're blah, blah, blah. Go talk to this dude or go talk to this dude. And I know you'll be a happy customer, It's good. This is how you build a community.
It's true, man. And the thinking about it in the reverse way of it's like a scarcity mindset to think that you have to try and do everything, because there is so much to be done. There's so many ways to do it. And there's so many people that are educated, learning, well-versed, have like grown up in traditions that they're sharing, And so when people get really proprietary about stuff, I get it. But also it's like you're putting yourself in the scarcity mindset to think that you could just do it all and then not point out to somebody else who's doing it better than you, because, they teach you from a young age is like, there's always going to be somebody that's doing something just a little bit better than you. You might be better than them at something else, but like when you all come together, you just like bring all the beauty and you can see and learn from each other. And I think that that's why this community and the communities that are healthy are really important, because you're going to help each other like rise up and then teach each other like what you've learned. And I just think like that is one of the things that is so important in life. Because I will get self-conscious too about certain things like that, where I'm like, well, I'm kind of more like a medicine woman, folk medicine lady in the forest, like gather the herbs and put them in the simple solution. And sometimes I found myself feeling inadequate because there would be somebody that's doing all these crazy, whatever's fabulous things. Like, oh, geez, mine's not as complicated as that. Does that mean it's not as good? And the answer is no.
Sometimes it's better.
Exactly, and so it's all about just having that confidence and knowing, like you said, James, like we all have our own gifts to share and we all have our own place. And so the fact that we do have each other, that's why I brought all of you guys together. That's why I wanted you guys here, because I know that we all have different views of it and ways that we approach it. And that's why it's so cool. And that's how you're going to teach other people, because I've found too, like through the simpler methods that I've perfected and shared, I've gotten like my parents to be into it. My dad is asking me for cannabis salves that I've been making for him and all these things, people that would never have really even wanted to, because it's just like, well, just rub it on your soreness and see what happens. And they're like, whoa, and then it's just, and it was a very simple process to get there. So anyway, I see the value in all of it, really. So anyway, and I think it's cool that it's accessible to a lot of people to be able to do these different methods. So with all that said, I mean, I'm just grateful for you all. So thank you for sharing this knowledge. with everybody.
And it's full spectrum, like just metaphysical, physical relationship. We're talking about full spectrum being the most beneficial of the cannabis extract or any extract of a plant, St. John's wort. You know, you want that full spectrum. People talk about how great ibogaine is. I agree. But if you're talking about iboga, the tree, the spiritual situation, I would go for the full spectrum. Ibogaine HCl is one alkaloid. That's great. And it can scrub receptors clean and give you spiritual transformation, do all sorts of stuff if it's meant for you. But the villages that are taking this in the woods and living with a 0% murder rate, they take iboga, not ibogaine. They take the full spectrum. And that's when we all come together with our different expertise and our different input and our insight. If we're healthy and we have proper motives and intent, it's full spectrum. And that's what I'm always trying to get to, you know.
Yeah, right on.
Absolutely. These medicines so often, and this is one of the things the pharmaceutical industry has really bypassed, where there's symbiosis between these components. And when you full spectrum the component, this is part of why, again, why old school Rick Simpson oil was curing so many things, but dabs, which you would think is so much more highly refined, doesn't cure anybody of nothing.
Right.
Like, you know,
Yeah, I'm glad we touched on the Rick Simpson oil because I really wanted to get your all's opinion on it, because I now, like, if you see it in the store in the dispensary, it's called fecco sometimes, so full extract cannabis oil. And so I have a good friend of mine who is using the green oil machine. Do you guys know what that is?
Yes, I've heard of that.
Alcohol extraction.
Yes.
Someone just sent that to me. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Because she was using it years ago and showed me the process, and it basically is kind of like taking the bud and putting it into, she would use Everclear or whatever.
Mhm.
Put the buds in the Everclear, freeze it, and then strain it, and then you're just extracting the cannabinoids and the terpenes from the alcohol, and it's basically distilling it down into the viscous oil, the fecco. So I wanted to get your guys' opinion on that because yeah, I've heard that RSO is like a dirty extraction or whatever, but the fecco, in my opinion, like making salves and stuff like that with it, when combining it with like a carrier oil, like avocado oil, makes a super high quality, really effective salve. So I know we kind of touched on it a little bit, but so like, what would be then the difference between the RSO that you were talking about versus like doing something like with the green oil machine? Is it literally just the type of alcohol you're using? Or what's the main difference?
The solvent. Just the solvent.
Okay.
Yeah, no, same exact process. And short of, okay, as an alchemist, your first go-to is typically you're going to take like an organic red wine and you're going to distill that 7 times. And that's what you're going to use as your ethyl alcohol. Because when you say Everclear, that's corn ethyl alcohol, and corn is just loaded with sugar, so it produces a ton of alcohol. That's why it's so highly favored, because I mean, corn is just like packed sugar. Not sugar like most people think, but sugar that's going to eventually process, and after it goes through its fermentation, it's going to produce more alcohol because it's got more sugars in it. Anyways, if you had fermented some cannabis and used that, that's going to be your best alcohol to use. Second is going to be your organic red wine that's been distilled 7 times. Same with your cannabis oil, because what you're trying to do with a solvent is a solvent, just like when you're mixing water, Kool-Aid into water, the water will only hold so much Kool-Aid. The rest is going to precipitate down to the bottom. So the more empty the water is, because that water's got minerals and things, unless you're using highly distilled water, has already got minerals and electrolytes in it. So now it can't hold more stuff. That space has already kind of been filled, and just like a sponge. And so the more empty you can make your solvent, the more it's going to be able to extract out and take. So you're trying to highly refine it, keep as much other stuff out of your process as possible. But then third, Everclear. It's easy. It's heavily abundant. who has a gallon of, rosemary alcohol that's been refined and extracted and fermented enough rosemary to make that alcohol to do that. So, most people just go with Everclear, and it's absolutely the same thing as Rick Simpson Oil, just not using naphtha, which was, you serious? Holy shit.
I believe a lot of the industry standard fecco is isopropyl alcohol extraction, and then they're cooking that off. And I just wanted to clarify, when they say dirty, naphtha is a dirty solvent. I don't use that one. I use a 200 proof ethanol from USA Labs. It's the cheapest, easiest place I've been able to source it. Because I'm trying to work on making my own alcohol, but I've already got too many projects.
You're so lucky you live right where USA Labs is. You're so lucky. My wife the only time she's ever been to Michigan was to go to USA Labs, and
2 hours down to Livonia. But yeah, that's a good source of the ethyl alcohol. But yeah, like I was saying back with the fecco oil, and you're saying it makes a wonderful medicine. I just wanted to clarify the dirty part. Nowadays, it's not dirty. They would consider it, as far as smoking it, it's very dirty. It would foul up your, whatever your smoking device is. It's not meant for smoking. It's that full plant, full spectrum. It is still good medicine. I just want to clarify that. But Rick Simpson himself is a humble man. And if you follow him after his stroke, and he's asked that people stop calling it Rick Simpson oil.
Yeah.
But it's just kind of stuck,
It's not going anywhere, bro.
No. I try to say it all the time. I'm just tired of saying it.
And he is humble, and he's awesome. And as Lee said, today's fecco is much better. I want to believe that at some point in time they're medicinally going to do it even better, where they're going to re-add the salts into an extremely purified oil that has the live sulfur still in it, and get the marriage of the sulfur and the salt while this is all still super live and really get full efficacy. I want to believe that that's where it's headed in the underground anyways. In the legal market, it's already just gone to shit. Anytime the legalization comes along, they make sure to take the best out of everything and just rip it apart, and you aren't left with anything but floor sweepings after it's done. So
yeah, right on. Well, I wanted to touch upon a couple more things too, because we are getting, does anybody need to go to the bathroom or anything? Because you can feel free and take a break or whatever. We've been going an hour and a half, so I understand some people want to get water or whatever, so feel free. Because I kind of want to segue into growing. Yep. But yeah, we can keep it going if you guys need a break. And James, feel free if you need a little 5-minute, go for it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I might.
Okay, cool. Because there's a lot to talk about, and I don't want to hold you guys. I think we'll go about 2 hours. So yeah,
cool.
It'll be good.
Cool. All right, 5 minutes.
All right, sweet. Sounds good.
All right.
Well, I'm going to check out the chat here while everybody's taking a little 5 minutes. Thank you guys for hanging out. Yeah, this is awesome. I knew that there was going to be some great conversations. Yeah. Okay. So I think Pedro's answering the question of, someone asked, what about using vodka? And that's a good answer. Vodka would have roughly half the alcohol of what they're recommending. So work half as well, which is true. Because vodka, depending on the type you're using, I like to use 100 proof vodka when I make tinctures. So that's going to be a little bit higher alcohol content than say an 80 proof vodka. So you want to have a higher proof vodka when you're trying to do these extractions. I find definitely, especially with the cannabis, because the terpenes and the oils and everything else that's in these plants, I think benefits from having a higher alcohol content for sure, at least from what I've come to find out. So I'm just going to go through the chat really quick, see what's going on. Thanks, my Sherry. I always think of my Sherry Amore when I see your name. So thanks for being here with us. Let's see here. Nomad's here. What's up, Nomad? Just going to cruise through and just say hey to everybody. Jenny G is with us too. Yeah, this has been a great one so far. Lots to take in. But yeah, we'll go through a little bit of a shout out with all these people so you guys can get a chance to know and understand where you can find them if you're interested in finding any of their products. But so all super great folks that I'm honored to be talking to tonight for sure. So King of Cups is here. Stacy Sunshine is here. Sarah G is here. Oh, interesting. Jennifer Bennett says RSO doesn't work on me. Yeah, as we were kind of talking about, everybody's different. So sometimes some things will work for certain people, sometimes others work better. You know, there's people out there that don't even really like to smoke cannabis, but they'd rather consume it, right? So it's just like it kind of all depends on what's going on with the person too. And I think it changes throughout different times of our life and what's going on with us. And so anyway, we're just going through the chat quickly to see who's here with us. But yeah, people are liking the conversation. We've got lots of movement going on, so it's pretty nice. So I want to segue once we get everybody back, because you have so much experience with growing. I have some questions for you. Want to pick your brain a little bit, and I'll wait till everybody's back. But that's one of my loves of this plant. I fall deeply and deeply in love with it more and more every single year, every time I've been able to grow it, because I learned so much from it. Because I'm a person who really likes to sit with plants and listen to what they have to say, I feel like cannabis has brought so many messages to me, and I've learned so many things about it just through growing it and literally just sitting with the plant, coming down to just even like feeling like there is such a gentleness to the plants that I find in other plants, but there's a gentleness in cannabis when you grow it and when you sit with it that I don't find in many other plants. And so, as I was saying to Lee, guys, I wanted to just kind of segue into growing and any kind of tips you have about that, and your experiences with it. What are some of the messages you've gotten from cannabis? What are things you notice throughout the different seasons? Do you have any like specific strains that you like to grow or that you are pulled to? So if we want to kind of get into that, and one of my questions I have before we get there is, when you buy seeds, if you buy seeds from a place and they're feminized, do you guys know what the process is to do that? Like, what are they doing to the seed to feminize it? That is something that I've wanted to know more about.
There's a few different things.
Okay.
A lot of them, if you're buying it in bulk like that, though, they're usually chemically feminized.
Yes, it used to be colloidal silver, and a colloidal silver will cause hermaphrodization and feminization in cannabis. But now they're using, I don't even know what chemicals they're using nowadays. Yeah. But it's playing with the hormones.
It's a harsh chemical.
Okay.
But you're finding the bright side of that story is you find that more in the designer cannabis, which in my opinion shit, to be honest. I'm an old school strain guy. See James immediately. Yep.
Balanced cannabinoids. Now everything they're doing nowadays is just to get the
purple
THC
haze
higher. Purple haze, granddaddy purple, Bubba Kush.
Yeah,
Hair, Panama
these ones,
red.
these are great. Mine's Chem Dog and Sour D are my two favorites.
Yes.
And this, Sour D.
I'm excited.
Friggin' but these newer things, they're very garbagey, but they also they're coming awful close to where we're talking about the same thing that you have with the patent market, where they've isolated down terpene profiles, chemical profiles inside the plant, and they don't want other people having access to that. So let's say tomorrow I come up with some, Odin's Alchemy strain that is the most amazing strain anybody's ever had. Well, obviously I don't want, if I invested the time to put into that kind of genetics and stuff, well, that person doesn't want every single person in the world growing it and completely devaluing it. So then that's where you see these feminized seeds coming from, because now you can't actually reproduce it. You can, get some clones off, and then clones don't really hold it's great for a couple generations, but you can't go and restart an entire field out of it. You need to have the male side of the genetics in there somewhere. So that's why you're seeing that. But those seed banks that are doing it, the designer ones, their shit sucks anyways. Like if it's got a biscotti, muscati, gelato, blah, blah, that's not fucking garbage.
Looks nice.
In my experience. Yeah. That's what it all drives for, is higher THC numbers,
amazing
better
visual.
Amazing, yeah. And a lot of that comes from the PGRs, plant growth regulators, that they're putting into the fertilizers and stuff.
Yeah.
Now, if you want an organic bud hardener, denser, kelp. That's all you need is kelp. Nice. I use kelp. But yeah, and these things are screwing with people's hormones. Oh yeah. They're making the weed.
And like the winter frost and stuff. Like the winter frost and those things that are like at the very end, making it look like it's just coated in crystals, and then you go to extract the oil and it still only pulls 8%. You're like,
yeah. But it looks like a crack rock. It's like a white. Yeah, it's like, wait, what?
Right. Yeah. Sarah G says porn names. That's perfect.
Oh man, you want to talk about porn names, dude? Heroin. The names.
Really?
You guys know the names stamped on heroin bags are like, they're ridiculous. They're like, go kill yourself. Fuck me. Fuck you. Like crazy shit.
Jeez.
Second to none with a skull with a snake going through the eye. Oh my god, like crazy.
I guess I haven't met a stripper named Gelato yet, but I bet you there's one out there.
I thought you said met a stripper named Dilaudid. I met a stripper named Dilaudid.
Oh my god, that's
some high grade stripper. That's like Heidi Fleiss level right there, Dilaudid. Which dude, the chat is just beautiful in all this. There, I can see it, and there is just so many amazing people in there, including
there are.
James from Family Fungi, who it's super interesting because James from Grounded Extract, his primary work that he's known for is although he recommends the full spectrum, I believe then the bark is all that's using for the other one that most people gravitate to, which is the ego of the plant, the center. And it's super interesting, the story that he tells with that and how that very much changes it and takes you through an entire another life, which is just another ego lived or multiple lives. Cannabis is the fruit of the plant, like the super feminine side, the sulfur side. And then Family Fungi, he's dealing with the fungus, the more root side of things. Super fascinating on every different level how these different things translate into our body and the reactions that we have. It's just amazing.
Yeah, it really is. And when you say root, I have to bring it up because I love working with cannabis roots. Yes. And James and I talked about this. And dude, I just have to say, I know you want to be careful with the cannabis roots because you want to make sure it's organic, just like we're talking about. People are using all sorts of crazy shit for fertilizers, bud expanders, and whatever the hell. Yeah. But if you know somebody is growing their cannabis well, safely, organically, using what's around them to even fertilize their crops, cannabis root can be super beneficial. And I've had really great success adding it to, like, infusing it into oils and then adding it into salves. And it just really drives the medicine deeper. And that was one of the things James and I talked about, is like root medicine and how freaking important it is, because it's under the ground. It is getting to the root of the problem. It's driving things in deeper. And I encourage people that if you do have access to fresh or just like really well grown cannabis and then the roots, I highly recommend utilizing it because it's a beautiful medicine. And it really, I just love having it around. I even love looking at it. I pulled my jar out in honor of our chat today, because it's fun to harvest it too. Cannabis root, when you pull up the roots, it's just like this, it's like hair-like roots almost,
Yes,
it's so amazing. Beautiful. Yeah, it is a mane.
And then
It
you gotta
really is.
wash it. You gotta give it a shower, and you gotta clean all the dirt out of it. Yeah, dude.
Yeah, you just really
and
get
the little
to know.
philia in it that are just so soft. The hairs, like if you ever try growing it's a version of hydroponic, but you missed the roots and the roots just dangle down openly. Oh my God, it's so amazing the root structures that have developed, how fine it. Yeah, aeroponics. Yeah.
I have cloners that I do aeroponic cloning in. I'll just take a cutting off the cannabis plant, and you can just use. You just got to pH balance your groundwater, rainwater, but you want to add a little bit of something, a little aloe in the water helps the rooting process. But they'll root without having to use any store-bought Clone X. I bought that stuff one time, and I did it in comparison with Clone X without Clone X. I've never bought Clone X again.
If you get fresh willow branches, also fresh willow branches boiled and down, that a little tea made out of that's an excellent for propagating roots.
Yes, willow and aloe are two really good ones for stimulating the root growth.
That's cool to know about the aloe. I didn't know about the aloe. That's a great one. That's awesome.
I'll do that with my when I'm taking a cutting. I cut it at like a 45-degree angle. I got a razor blade, and I kind of shave it back a little bit because you want to increase the surface area underneath the Cambria level of the skin of the stalk. And then the roots will come in faster. Sometimes you can just do a 45 and a little split up the middle, and then I stab it into an aloe thing and leave it sit there until I get to my cloner. And then just put it right in the cloner. And it's just about having your clone water. If you're doing aeroponics, it's lovely, and you don't have to wash the roots. They come in all white. You can see their hairs, and you put them under a jeweler's loop, and you can really see the hairs. And it's a beautiful thing. So I just got the idea. I've never tried to eat cannabis root sprouts, but I can pump them out.
Nice. Yeah, that's awesome.
Try that.
Now, I know, Lee, you sent me a message before our show, and you talked about how you make your own. You basically are making your own compost and fertilizers and stuff like that, right? So I do want you to talk about that and talk about just your process with that and the differences you've noticed since you've begun to make your own and produce your own compost for your cannabis plants.
This will be the third year doing it, and I'm working with my own genetics that I'm sowing. I have my own line of Granddaddy Purple and Bubba. It came from Bubbalicious originally, and I've just been sowing my own seed to adapt them to my outdoor climate. But yes, I'm so blessed here to have all the farm animals and stuff, all the sheep. So I'm using sheep manure, cow manure, horse manure mixed in with hay, and we have a rich clay soil. And just trying to turn it over with a skid steer every couple of weeks that I can. Just been letting it overwinter. And when I go out there shortly to redo my mounds, I won't be it'll be a no-till year, and I'm just amending new compost around it. And I'm planting oregano and dill. Dill will bring in your ladybugs, and oregano is just great for your IPM, integrated pest management. It's a beautiful thing. If we get bad mildew or something from too much humidity, milk. You just use 25% milk in a gallon of water, and you spray it as it starts to rain. So you're washing the milk right off, and it just pulls all any kind of mildew or mold right with it. So it's good organic ways to treat things. That's the biggest thing in the industry right now, especially indoor. It's become factory farmed. And there's a lot of people still doing it right, but like a lot of the big warehouses in Michigan, 1,500 plant counts, and they're cranking it out so much. And I'm not even sure what all they're using these days, but there's a lot of fungicide and pesticide management, whatever nutrient they decide to go with, but almost always PGRs, because that's how you get the rock hard bugs. Like there's plenty of genetics that have more density. You have genetics with good density. But you don't get like those just rock hards without using added chemicals to boost the hormone production of that. But just
the American way. As long as it looks good, it don't got to be filled with nutrition or shit. It looks good.
Yeah,
it's fucking amazing. Like I don't know if you guys. I'm curious about this one with Lee especially, because it's still illegal. a lot where around the area, because James is kind of in the Bible Belt. So I'm very curious what the CRC is doing to your market, because anything that's ran through CRC, which for anybody that doesn't know, this is a remediation where you basically run the oil while it's still mixed into the solvent through a bunch of powders, chemicals, whatever, and then strain it through. And what it's doing is it's depending on what it is, and this is the industry standard. So this is what you can expect when you go to the store to buy something that has absolutely been ran through this. There's no such thing as doing it the good old way and getting the good stuff like what I make or what these guys make anymore. You have to, because regulations. So regulations, it has to have 0 pesticides, so it gets ran through this chemical shitstorm. It has to have 0 fungus in it, 0, all these different things. So that's what it's removing. At the end of the process, the product doesn't work, and it looks amazingly white and clear, and people are like, oh my God, bling, bling, bling. And everybody wants that, and it is garbage.
Bro, when I was in New York, this dude gave me an ounce of the best looking weed I'd ever seen. Like, I was like, damn, really? And he's like, yeah. And dude, it was just like sugar. It was like caked, And now we only work with CBD because of where we live, but I get way more benefits, high overall medicinal everything from if I smoke some CBD herb, with the 0.03 THC, high CBD, it's like 13%. I get way more out of that than I did out of that sugary cake shit that I got in New York. And the dude wouldn't return my phone calls and stuff. This is years ago, but this is right when the dispensary shit started happening. And New York was on it right away. And it's like, I like the idea. It can go one way or another. But like expanding a market, it is in this era in America, you better have the right players on your team, because like people have emailed me and stuff and from other countries, Costa Rica and Africa, and they talk to me about, they asked me about Iboga, and I, and they, they know it's not something I work with, but people have wanted me to get involved in setting up like farm situations, agriculture situations. Obviously can't be done in America, but in Costa Rica it can, and in Mexico, Canada, and it's happening everywhere. Now the problem is, it's like, if you're not familiar, I could never get involved with something like that at this time in my life, because I'm not familiar with any of these places. I don't know if it's what happened with the cannabis industry in America, because it's absolutely getting destroyed and owned and altered. Would that happen elsewhere with something like Iboga? Is it even possible? But they're already trying to, rip it apart in California and the labs and stuff. They're allowed to research it, but it's just, man, it's like, I like the overall acceptance and expansion of things I like, but at what cost in this realm? Like, should things just stay niche, or like, I don't know. I think we're just going into such, new territory.
My question now, James, is did the prohibition create the overall use? Because, but prior to prohibition, one of the things that when they went into to do prohibition, he said, and this is his words, not mine, that the only people that use cannabis are niggers and musicians, and they are going to come and take your women. This was what this man said in front of the fucking Senate.
Yeah.
And so
yeah. Anslinger, Randolph Hearst.
Yeah. And so this would then say that while it was readily available and everybody knew to use it medicinally, that there wasn't an issue with overconsumption, and that this overconsumption is a direct result of the prohibition.
Absolutely. I would totally agree with that. Yeah. I would say that is why. And cannabis, it wasn't even being sold in lozenges and things like that, obviously, not to be smoked. It was before all this started in the 1800s, 1900s, it was in remedies, like extraction methods like we're talking now. They coined the term marijuana, which didn't originally, it was mota and cannabis, right? And so now they took mota and they're like, no, smokable cannabis, we're calling that marijuana. And that is only a bunch of dirty blacks and Mexicans smoke it, and rah, we got to get them out of here. So make sombreros illegal, and that's the mainstream, like behind the curtain take. And then you go deeper, and then you talk about the pharmaceutical industry coming up at the same exact time as all these cannabis, laws being put on,
and fake textiles.
Oh yeah.
Also.
Nylon. The DuPont family was a big funder of that because of nylon. Replaced paraffin.
Basically chemical. It was like, we have this thing that answers so many questions and takes care of so many needs, or we can build a whole vast array of chemical industries. Which one?
Right. Yeah. No, go ahead, James.
Well, just a last thing on that, in the 30s, like the books, and it's not like people did, like, advocates didn't exist back then. There were full blown, like, commissioned reports done. Mayor LaGuardia did it. Like, he was that did the biggest one because of these new laws coming out. They're like, okay, well, let's do an independent study. And I mean, word for word, in this study says, what it found is it's not the determining factor in commission of major crimes. The practice of smoking marijuana does not lead to addiction in the medical sense of the word. The sale and distribution of marijuana is not under control of any single organized group. The use of marijuana does not lead to morphine or heroin or cocaine addiction, which is the original propaganda. And no effort is made to create a market for these narcotics by stimulating the practice of marijuana smoking. And what happened after that? Massive public study came out. Illegal.
Yeah,
freaking
sounds
amazing.
About right.
And one of the best parts, honestly, and I'm very curious, and I actually kind of already know, because I know both these gentlemen, and they're two of the most grounded extracts, two of the most grounded fellas that I know. Where had I not prior to cannabis, I was already looking into things. But I probably could have went to the airy-fairy nonsense levels of things because I was looking at alternative stuff. Had it not been for cannabis, where I'm so rooted because of what I do in the lab, and not just cannabis, lab work, period. This gives me such an understanding of the natural world that if a philosophy comes that's against that, it immediately is something, at least that portion of it, I reject. Like it because there's this mechanical system, and I can thank 100% the making of my own medicine for that, because I was matching that to these philosophies, the alchemical texts, the things that I was weird things I was reading. That only those true understandings only came through the lab.
The experience, you put the work in, dude. Like we're just, dude, simple things about life in general, man. And I'm seeing it everywhere now. Just these little things you will not pick up by in any other way than by doing it yourself. And the most experienced person in the world might not even point it out to you because they're seeing it in a different way. They've experienced the different, it's cool. Very cool.
Yeah, I agree. And, I'm glad you brought up the grounded aspect of it, because I feel the same way. And, I think that a lot of these newer, like, types of cannabises that are coming out actually remove that more grounded feeling that you get from some of these more homegrown, sun-grown, lots of care going into it. And as you're saying, they're putting it through this huge chemical process, stripping it of all of the great things that are in there. Well, what else on a spiritual level are they stripping from it? They're stripping that thing that brings you down to the ground, that helps you to have more of like a clearer mind and to be able to decipher certain things from other things and have a little bit more critical thought, be introspective. Whereas if you're up in the clouds and you're smoking these really strong strains, you're kind of not as grounded, in my experience anyway. And then knowing people who are just really into that side of it, it's very different and you can feel it. So that's a great point. I'm glad you brought that up.
And it fully matches the philosophy, because that's why they get into these crazy airy-fairy philosophies that don't have any bite and don't have any root, because that's where they are.
I'm sure y'all have noticed when you grow your own, if it's CBD, THC, whatever, it's got a more full spectrum makeup. If you're doing it completely organic and natural, truly natural, after it's done curing, or if you use the medicine in whatever capacity, whenever after you grow it, if you do it right, you do it completely natural. In my experience, the effect is not so much of like, oh, I'm high and I'm forgetting shit. In my opinion, my experience, I've experienced clarity from herb I've grown. And I don't get like I'm high and I have munchies and all that. No, but there is like a clarity, like an intuitive, like you said, grounded. I'm more, and that blew my mind too. And I was like, oh, what am I smoking then? Because all this other stuff I've been smoking for years don't do that, and not to say those don't have their place as well, but it's interesting who grows it, how it comes out, depending on what you use, the spiritual efficacy, it all factors in, and people always want to quantify and isolate things. And I appreciate y'all, because y'all understand, again, the full spectrum. It's great.
And the intention that you're putting into it. You are like, when you're buying it, chances are good that person's intention on that plant was, I want it to look as good as possible and sell and make as much money as possible. That's the intention that got put into that plant. What James is talking about, you aren't doing that. You're like, no, I want this plant to be wonderful and healing, and that entire intention's been put in there. It's so much more beautiful.
Yes, playing 432 Chopin and talking to him every day. That the dude the dude with the grow house ain't necessarily doing that, but maybe you got a good one.
Yeah, but last year I left a classic rock on a Bluetooth speaker. It's waterproof, just out in the field all summer. Like, it ran from May to October, just with classic rock. So this year I'm gonna try 432.
Nice. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, talking with them is huge.
Gonna do Alex Michael.
Yeah, I'm gonna put his solfeggio album on loop out there for the sheep and the plants.
There you go.
Nice.
I just grow it. It's in a sheep field, just with a fence around it.
We've got one comment in here. We're coming up to the end of the 2-hour mark, and I want you guys to be able to have time to shout yourselves out and tell everyone where they can find you. But I want to put this on the screen because it is something I wanted to bring up. We just didn't get there. Anybody use electroculture for cannabis? And I'm actually, next week, I'm interviewing a guy named Matt Roski, who's been really vocal about electroculture. He's kind of trying to bring it back. So I'm going to be talking to him next week about that. But have you guys used electroculture with any of your cannabis growing methods? And if so, have you noticed anything different?
Not yet. I've tried the grounding before. Like, I just take a copper, put it on the strip, and just put it into the ground plug in the wall. Yeah, I just did that. I don't know, sometime a couple of years ago, to see what it would do. I didn't really notice a difference. But this year, I've been seeing all this electroculture buzz going around, and I'm so excited to try it with all kinds of different gauge wires and wraps and antenna arrangements. I can't wait to try that. I got a rare earth magnet so I'm going to do the South Pole exposure of the magnet to my seeds. And I'm about to do a big, I start with like 200 seeds to end up with like 20 good ones, right? When I'm doing a seed hunting project of my own seed, it's like, Sparta standards, like only the finest, we'll make it. So I'm excited to try the the magnetic seed exposure with the various electroculture antenna ideas I've seen floating around. I'll have the same genetics and like this antenna at this plant, and this antenna at this plant, and this setup at this plant, and we'll see who wins.
Yeah.
So my question on that, and it has been because I've been looking at trying to going to develop. I haven't done so yet, just because here in Humboldt County, believe it or not, even though I literally live in the Emerald Triangle, the law enforcement here on cannabis, even though it's legal, absolutely insane. You want 50 freaking people in SWAT gear to come tearing apart your farm, then grow a pot plant out here. So with all that said, I've wondered why. Now I've done the magnetic seed exposure, absolutely worked, fantastic. Now when you take that in, the magnetic side of things are grounded, and that's your electron side of things. When you start looking at all the different science, it's when you split up things, you've got an electron side and an ion side. So everything up here is being ionized, and that's what we're working on here is with the antenna array that you're basically setting up. Now, a lot of these people are setting it up where it's just a singular antenna for a single plant, which is different than when they set it up in an array, which is still different when they set it up in like a series array or a series parallel. Because you actually start getting it when you just do the single coil, you are pulling in basically an antenna for the ion side of things. So my question's been, why not just leave the magnet underneath there? Because what you're doing is getting a focus of that ionization from this side and the magnetic side from here, and you're focusing that power right here. Just burn. And so I don't understand why not just take like a neodymium and put it underneath. Now I understand that in a outside that's going to be hard, but easily in an indoor or a greenhouse you could do that, because you could just put it right at the bottom of the pot where and even with cannabis plants, they tend to go out, not down. So you could do that fairly easily and leave that magnetic structure in there, and then you're pulling in the ionization. Now, I know like Ken Wheeler just did one, and he talks about how any plant or any metal will pull this in. And I do agree, we'll pull in the ion side, but specifically with copper, you're pulling in hydrogen. Copper draws hydrogen and pushes oxygen. So you're pulling in the hydrogen from the environment really well. Copper would be the one that I'm using. And honestly, old school growing, you used to take rusted iron nails, and that was one of your best things. That some rusty iron nails, some dead fish, and some piss. Yeah, and you're going
silver coin.
Yeah. Yep. Exactly. So I would put a magnet, and even outside of neodymium, I would maybe even try an iron magnet if I, maybe in a baggie or something, and then put the electroculture on top of it and combine that entire process together. But then when you start tying them together in the series and the parallels, it actually starts creating a true voltage. And that's the thing that nobody's really talking about, because then that does do a lot of things. Like if you get too much voltage, it starts like at a really low voltage and really low frequency. Some of your more predatory things start knocking off, and it kind of kills them. But you get it too high, it starts killing out the biome in the soil too. So there's a lot of information people out there aren't using and talking about.
Yeah. And I'm wanting to get to the bottom of it. Like, I want to understand this like thoroughly, holistically too, because I've been seeing, use iron, don't use iron, just put the antenna around, use the copper coil around a stick. That's all you need to do. Then there's people that use galvanized wire with magnets coated in beeswax. North to south, that's your ground, and then you're putting the copper in the soil and creating antennas. I'm hearing lots of different things, just like you're saying too. So I'm like really trying to get to the bottom of it as well, because I have like a gardening book. It's like all old time, just gardening traditions from fertilizers to electroculture and everything. And they were kind of talking about using any metal, like they would use old bicycle spokes or pie plates, aluminum cans, whatever. So there's just all this varying information, which is why I'm having that guy on next week, Matt, so I can pick his brain a little bit more and just ask more questions. And I feel like we could do a whole episode on like this topic alone. So, before we get down any more rabbit holes, I say we close this roundtable, and I don't want it to be the last.
Go ahead. The iron would be under the soil and then the copper above, and what I was talking about, because then the iron draws oxygen, which is how iron rusts, because it oxygenates, it draws oxygen. And a lot of people know plants breathe carbon dioxide, but the roots breathe oxygen. So you need to oxygenate the roots, even if you don't have, you might have a carbon dioxide generator up top. So you're playing on that differential when you use the two different ones. So I wouldn't use the iron for to pull the ion side in, but I would put it underneath, because then it's going to be better, because that's ferromagnetic rather than diamagnetic like copper. You're playing off that, and you're trying to center those forces, center them. And the center's where the boom's going to happen, which is where you want that seed, that plant, the heart of that life to be.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. Yeah. I'm just like so curious about it. And I know it's been like used for so long. So anyway, I know there's value there. I just want to understand it. Really.
I think it would go in conjunction with the amino acids in your living soil. It's like I've seen, like if you take some amino acids with calcium and hydroponic growth, like you get 10 times the root growth. It's nuts. I can send you some videos on that.
Cool. I'd love to
see them. That's the chemistry side without the electricity. So that's like I'm seeing all those old pictures of the 2,000-pound pumpkins.
FPJs.
And we'll figure it out.
Nice. All righty, fellas. Well, I say we conclude this one. And I want you all to have a chance to shout yourselves out, let people know where they can find you. I did put all the links I could find for you guys are all in the description, so if people will have reference there. But let's go around again. Start with Ben and tell people where they can find you, what you're excited about, what's going on Odin's Alchemy. And thanks again for spending some time with us, my friend.
Absolutely. Like I said, it was an absolute honor. I truly love each and every one of you and have met you in person, and I truly consider each of you my friends, and would have any of you in my house whether I'm there or not. So it's any time with you guys. I just love you guys. And tomorrow I have Amanda Vollmer. It's going to be live, so that's going to be absolutely great. We're going to talk about pleomorphism and some other really nerdy things. It's going to be awesome. There's some real interesting concepts that another person you might want to try and get in touch with is Matt Powers, for all those different things. And the way that your body is programming things, the way that things just seem to appear out of nowhere, even in a closed system like wild yeast. Well, when they say wild yeast, where did it come from? Like inside the plant is already two different systems ready to break the plant down and ready to break the animal, whatever. So it's going to be interesting. Other than that, everybody check out Spiders on Weaving Spiders Webs on Saturdays. That's always a good time. And Flattoberfest in Vegas this year. So, and actually, Michelle's significant other is helping me on my presentation for that this year, as he does computer graphic design and I do computer nothing. And so, so he's helping me with that. And so I'm really, really stoked. The presentation I'm going to put together this year is we're going to put animation to it and be able to lay it out so the story flows with what I'm saying. It's not just me babbling on. So I realize, like, tomorrow night, sometimes after 2 hours of listening to two nerds talk high science, it's a little bit, intolerable, a little much to chew on. So this will make it a whole lot better, I think. And the whole chat, you guys are beautiful. Actually, one of Christy's friends, who's not normally around, I see her name was popping up in the chat. Sarah G, we love you. Christy's, if she hasn't already mailed it, as it was out mailing your stuff today. So sorry for taking so much time. She put in an order, and then that was right before the snowstorms, before I got assaulted by a highway worker and my truck broke down trying to escape and everything. Yeah, not everybody knows that. I got it was the weirdest thing. I got trapped up in the mountains. And by this one worker put a motor grader across the road, so I couldn't get by. And then I got trapped by 2 plows behind me. This dude comes up and just starts punching me, and then hits my windshield with a shovel. Yeah, dude. And then I had to I'm like, and I rev my truck so much trying to rip myself, because I had to whip around and do a 180, and there's only half a road to try and get by through those 2 plows, because I couldn't get by that motor grader, and shot between those 2 plows, and it cracked my windshield. I'm like, geez. And the cops have already got it and everything. It was insane. I don't know what the hell. But she's, I think, parking, yelling at animals. I think my cows are probably in the way, and my wife just got home. But Flattoberfest, Vegas this year, West Coast. It's going to be awesome. The whole Spider crew is going to come. Hopefully Michelle and Mario are included in that. That's what's going on.
Nice.
Love you all.
Awesome, man.
Love you too, man. And yes, we're going to try and get there. We'll see how everything goes. And yeah, it's been something that we've been wanting to go to, and it just has never worked out. So the fact that it is on the West Coast and we could actually drive there is kind of cool. So yeah, man. Alrighty, Lee, what's going on? How can people get a hold of you if they'd like to learn about what you have to offer and all the knowledge you have to share?
I'm still working on developing a website. At the moment, you can reach me at Thunderchicken87 at protonmail.me. Pretty sure that's it. Or I'm on Facebook under Lee Thunderchicken. On Telegram. I refuse to learn any more social media than that. I don't computer very well anymore these days either. I'm getting there, but mostly it's a hobby. But if anybody wants to contact me with, I can send you menus of how to make this, how you make that, and we can go from there.
Nice. I can get behind limiting the amount of computer stuff that you want to learn. I totally get that, man.
Would you believe I'm A+ certified in computer repair 2009? But like when I woke up in 2016, I just smartphone. That's the only thing I still use. I go dust this laptop off tonight.
Nice, right on. Alrighty, and James, can you please let people know where they can find you as well?
Yes. You can find us on YouTube searching Grounded Extracts, 2 words, black and white logo. Type in Grounded Extracts. Got to type in the whole thing. So we have a show called The Vulgate where we're just talking about our life and what we do and trying to set the record straight. And just trying to do what we all do and why we all got into truth and whatnot. So that's what we do over on The Vulgate. And that's live not live. It's uploaded every Tuesday at a different time. So people are really enjoying it. Check that out. And groundedextracts.com. Thank you guys so much. I love all of you guys. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you. And I've been loving The Vulgate too. And, I love you guys, and I'm so excited to be sharing more stuff. And James, I have to say, you had a wonderful talk with Emily Moyer recently, and it's up on her Patreon. Yeah, I listened to that, and what's up, Christy? And so that was a really great chat, and you guys brought some new things up that I was unaware of. That so
I was unaware. Yeah. I know. I'm learning about myself. And this world is very interesting. But thank you so much for saying that. Emily Moyer is a very cool person, and all you guys are very cool. I can't see the chat, but except for the one Michelle's put up, and I love the people she put up. I love you guys very much. Again, thank you. Thank you for having me, and Ben, Lee, Michelle. And Christy.
Much love.
Much love. And to Mario, Symbolic Studies.
Yeah. You guys are great. Thank you so much. And for anyone who wants to stick around, who's in the chat, I've got some updates, but I'm going to let these fellas go and carry on with their night. And you guys all take care. I will see you guys soon and talk to you very soon. All right. Bye-bye.
Bye, y'all.
All righty, people. So let's see. All right, here I am, and here you are. Thank you guys for hanging out. Oh my goodness. What a freaking gem of an episode. That was awesome. We went all over the place, talked about things that I really wanted to talk about, that we also talked about things I didn't expect to talk about. But you know what? That's how it goes with these interviews and these shows, is what I'm realizing. And I love every moment of it. And I feel really grateful to have had the time with these guys, because they're so knowledgeable. And I learned a lot just by listening to what they have to say and hearing their own processes. And so this will not be the last Cannabis Roundtable. I will tell you that much. I saw somebody in the chat give a suggestion of maybe checking in with them like mid-growing season. And I think that that's a really good idea, because I would love to see mid-growing season where we're all at, what we're all doing. What have we applied? What have we learned? What have we kept the same? So I really love that suggestion. Thank you. And I'm going to keep that in mind. And I just want to throw it out there for people. I'd like to pull in more people who are working with cannabis, who have experience with cannabis. So if you are interested in being a part of one of these Cannabis Roundtables, feel free and reach out to me. And you know what? I'd like to get some more ladies up in the house. I've been trying to rack my brain about other women that I know who are either working really closely with cannabis, who are growing it, who are experiencing it, who have really good just stories surrounding it. So that I would love to also figure out as well. So I'll keep racking my brain. I do have a couple people in mind that I think would be really good. And if they'd like to be on a show and kind of maybe join us, join some of the other people that we had tonight, I think it'd be really fun. So anyway, I'm going to pull up some slides for you that I've got for updates. And so next week, as I said during our chat, next week's show is with Matt Roski of Cultivate Elevate. Now, I have just found him about maybe a couple months ago, because I kept getting this reminder of electroculture when I first learned about it, which was like, I don't know, maybe 4 years ago or something. And as I was starting to prepare plans for this year's garden, I thought of electroculture, and I was like, oh, electroculture, the copper thing. I should totally look into that again. And so I started doing research. I came across Matt Roski's work on YouTube, and his YouTube channel is called Cultivate Elevate. And he is kind of like, he's one of the people that's being more vocal about electroculture right now, and other things as well. But when I came across his work, I was like, oh man, this would be great to be able to pick his brain a little bit more. So I reached out, and he got back to me, and he's going to be on next week. And the time is a little different. So we're going to be going live at 12 p.m. Pacific Standard Time next Tuesday. So we'll be live then on the 18th of April, and we're going to talk about electroculture. So yeah, I'm really excited about this one, and I can't wait to just pick his brain and learn more about what he knows about, and yeah, just get into it. So join us for that one. It's going to be a good one next week. As always, last Thursday, every Thursday with Mario and I, we are, as I've said before, very excited about the show. We're having fun. We did pull in a new format for you all. So Mario and I are kind of like, we're each picking a topic that we want to talk about. And we're not telling each other what the topic is, and then we are bringing it to you guys. And so we're both being presented with the information from each other at the same time as you are. And it was really fun last week, actually. And I feel like it brought a nice structure to the show, and we had a really good time. And it's just been so fun, like interacting a little bit more with people in the chat with last Thursday. And because it's a little bit more casual, we've just been it's been a nice chill thing for us to do. So come and hang out with us this Thursday at 6 p.m. And I believe the date on that, that's going to be the 13th. So Thursday, April 13th at 6 p.m. Pacific Standard, we'll be here on The Healing Home. As I mentioned in the beginning of the show, patreon.com/The Healing Home for anyone who would like to show some support. All support of any level is very much appreciated. All patrons get access to my full moon offering a couple days before all other newsletter subscribers, which then gives you a chance to purchase stuff before it gets sold out, because the current moon offering is my soap and shampoo bars, and I did sell out of all the shampoo. So if you're a patron, you could have access to getting it early to make sure that you don't miss out on one of the offerings. But I still have 2 bars of my red clay and shea soap. I am so freaking over the moon with these soaps and shampoos. People that have been using them really like them as well. So I've been getting really good feedback. So thank you to everybody too who's been placing an order. And it's really cool because it just feels so gratifying to share my goods with people and seeing that people are liking them and really just treasuring them and understanding that there's a lot of love and time and thought that goes into them. So that can all be found out through my newsletter. Up on the screen is my current menu, what I have. Red clay and shea soap, as I said, 2 bars left. I've got 1 jar of my CBD body butter whip that I really am enjoying as well too. 1 bottle of strong and serene tincture, 1 horseradish fire cider left. So I'm down to ones on a lot of these things. Antifungal and wound healing salve, I've got 1 left as well. So if you're wanting to purchase some stuff and try some of these things, as I said, I've got 1 of many items right now. So email me, michelleshealinghome@gmail.com to place an order, ask me questions. If you are maybe a person that is very interested in maybe coming and talking about talking on another Cannabis Roundtable episode, let me know. And we can chat. michelleshealinghome.com as well is where I'm at. You can you can sign up for my newsletter there. You can read my blog, which I update pretty much monthly, if not more. And I've got a plethora of recipes up there on my blog as well, where I like to share my thoughts, my recipes, all sorts of stuff. You can text me 503-568-1569. I also have consultations available for anyone who's interested in maybe going a little deeper on certain topics. Specifically, if you're like wanting to learn a little bit more on how to make specific things, or maybe you're wanting to work through a situation that you're having going on, and you're wanting to understand how to maybe incorporate herbs to help you through some certain things, I could maybe help you with that. But you can reach out to me. Go onto my website. I have a video up that explains the areas of study and healing that I'm very comfortable with talking about. And if you don't see what you might be interested in, just email me and ask me, and I will let you know if I feel comfortable with it, and we can go from there. And so with all of that said, that's what I've got for you for this evening. Seeing some really great people still in the chat. Thanks for sticking around for the updates. Yes, Rose, I'm so happy you got the soap, because that was really cool. And I love sharing it, and I'm really glad that you're liking it so far. Anyone who's a lot when people reach out and let me know that it's resonating with them and that they're liking it. And so anyway, that's how it goes, and it's really rewarding. And so that's one of the main reasons why I'm doing this, is to share this medicine with people so that they can incorporate it into their lives and feel the healing benefits from it, and then maybe get inspired on their own accord to go on their own journey to start to learn to make things, because that is one of the other reasons why I love doing this work, is to share my methods with people so that they can get inspired and then maybe try and start making their own products too, because that for me was one of the most empowering things about learning more about herbal medicine, was literally seeing how simple some of these things can be made and how simply they can be applied to your life. And so just like we were talking about tonight with like all the different types of cannabis extractions, but when you come back down to it, if you have very minimal amounts of equipment, very minimal amounts of ingredients, and you have cannabis that is well grown and healthy, you can make beautiful medicine in the most simple ways, and you can apply it in simple ways. And the healing that will come from it can be very profound. So I just wanted to reiterate that don't be intimidated by a lot of the extra complicated sort of methods or something that you might learn about. Don't let that intimidate you, because literally get yourself a bottle of olive oil, get yourself some really high quality cannabis, and you can make so many great things that you can share with your friends and your family and yourself, and you will you won't want to go back to using more conventional products. I really do. I've seen that with a lot of people. So anyway, there's my little plug for keeping it simple and not getting intimidated, and don't let other people tell you that you can't do it, because I feel like we're, as people, we're meant to be working with plants, and we're meant to be keeping things simple. We're meant to be working with the stuff that's around us. And when we take ourselves away from that, we separate ourselves from ourselves, and we separate ourselves from our ancestors and the land. And yeah, I could go on. So anyway, with all that, I'm going to say goodnight to you guys. Thank you again. I really appreciate you guys hanging out. And this was a great one. And until next week, we'll see you then at 12 p.m. noon. Don't forget, it's a different time next week. All right. We'll see you all. Thank you so much. Much love.